When I arrived at my best friend's front door in Charlotte, North Carolina last fall, my heart was racing. I walked up, stood there, rang the doorbell, waited, and then finally heard the door click, and she opened it, peeked out, looked me in the eye, and then shut the door. And I waited, and I waited. She opened again and said, "You're here!" I met my best friend at the end of my second term of AmeriCorps. I had served in Providence and had moved there from the Midwest. She had served in New Hampshire and had moved there from the South. I officially met her at the end of those terms, though I knew who she was far before that. She had a reputation for having a really enormous personality, really energetic, really powerful, and some friends of mine had met her at a conference and said, "You have to meet this girl." And I finally got this opportunity when I started dating one of her friends and fellow Corps members from New Hampshire. So we were at this breakfast gathering, and she walked up to me, grabbed my arm, pulled me into a room, shut the door, looked at me and said, "What are your intentions with Tony?" And it was this sense of humor and deep caring for her friends that made an instant connection. That connection continued over the years as I continued to date Tony. When her and her husband were expecting their first daughter, they asked Tony to be the godfather, and they asked me to be the fairy godmother, which means all fun all the time. And when Tony and I were planning our wedding, we asked her to be our matron of honor, her husband to be our officiant, and our goddaughter to be our flower girl. Their lives are integral to ours, and ours are integral to theirs. In fact, 3 years ago, we started a tradition of spending the holidays together. So where a lot of people join their family, we join our chosen family with another couple friends of ours. We've combined all of our last names to call this Camp Pansy Ford. So it's a very deep friendship. Just over, or nearly 2 years ago, Emerald had her second daughter, and her world forever changed. And 3 weeks later, my mom passed away, and my world came crashing down. See, there were a lot of mixed emotions and feelings that were tied to my mom's illness and her eventual death, and I never wanted to talk about it. So in that first day after her loss, I was in this haze of balancing the minutia of an obituary's word count and the enormity of the grief that I was facing. And I got a phone call from my best friend, and she said, "My flight lands in Milwaukee tomorrow at noon." And I said, "No, you just had a baby." And she said, "Of course I'm coming. Where else would I be?" So in that first week of living in a world where my mom wasn't, my best friend, a 3-week-old baby, and I spent countless hours on a couch, sitting, talking, laughing, crying, just being. That's my favorite thing to do with her, is just be. And in the last few hours of us being together, she said to me, "Can I sing a song to you?" And I said, "Sure." So I curled up next to her on the couch, and from her, with this tiny baby laying on her chest, the most beautiful song came from within her. And I'm sitting there taking it all in and start crying. She sang the hymn, "His Eye is on the Sparrow," and I realized the connection of that song and what she was doing for me in that moment, that no matter what was going to come to my life, she was there to cover me, protect me, be there for me. She had my back. And it was that moment that I actually got sparrows tattooed on my back as a reminder of that friendship, so that I'm constantly carrying that power with me. Not too long ago, I got a text from my best friend, and it said, "I'm getting pulled over by the cops. If something happens, know that it wasn't suicide." See, this is the difference in our relationship. For as much as we have in common and as much as we share, there's one major difference, and that's that the energy and power and enormous personality that my best friend, Emerald Latoya Anderson Ford, carries under her beautiful black skin means that when she gets pulled over by the police, her fear is that she's going to become the next Sandra Bland, that she's going to be the next black woman to be pulled over in a routine traffic stop, put in prison for 3 days, and then die, blamed on suicide. Luckily for us, Emerald was fine that day, but that fear that ignited in her that day lit this storm of being a part of this movement. And not too long after that, Keith Lamont Scott was killed by the police in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then Emerald and her husband, Demond, were spending every single night on the streets of Charlotte, coming together with the community, just asking for everyone to listen, wake up, please recognize that Black lives matter. And every moment that she spent out there, I was at home terrified that something was going to happen to her and Demond, and also so proud of what they were doing and getting out there and being a part of the movement. Yet this fear was in me that something was going to happen and we were going to have to pull our goddaughter in and explain to this beautiful Black baby why the world had wronged her. So I went to Charlotte. I had to go. I had to go there. I needed to be there. I needed to just show up. I needed to let them know that no matter what the world brought them, I was going to be there to cover them, protect them, to have their back. I needed to sit on the couch and just be with Emerald and hold her hand that now has those same sparrows tattooed on it to mirror mine. See, what we've learned is that when our worlds come crashing down, sometimes the thing you have to do is just show up and just be with the people you love. So when I stood there on that porch and she opened the door, shut it, and opened it again, and she said, "You're here." I said, "Of course I am. Where else would I be?"